Yet another scam to be wary about and share with your loved ones so they're not caught out. Wiltshire police constables' mysterious misconduct allegations are now released. 2 years after a father of four died whilst in police custody and after an IOPC report recommending charges, 5 police constables won't be facing any criminal sanctions. Up yours, BBC. Vera Lynn's Land of Hope and Glory reaches #1 spot on iTunes. This and more coming up. And don't forget, these reports are daily, Monday to Friday. Please remember to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you appreciate the work I do and understand that these topics can result in little to no YouTube monetization, please consider joining the channel Patreon for as little as just £3 a month to help me continue providing this content. Well, hello there, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan and welcome back to another PAP Reports. It is Wednesday, 26th of August, 2020. In the past week, we've heard of police phone call scams on the rise and fake traffic warden scams too. Well, now we have another one for you to warn your loved ones about. This time it's a charity scam and seems people doorstep collecting, with some using coronavirus as their plea for help, including collecting for those who have lost their jobs due to coronavirus, as well as local schools and animals. This scam is currently reported to be carried out in Manchester, but as with the recent warnings, it could obviously happen anywhere. Now, the scammers may be posing for a charity that doesn't even exist, as well as using names of well-known charities. Although the most common method is asking people for money, there are also reports that these scammers are asking people for sponsorship for a bogus event or to donate clothing, which they'll then go on to sell. Now, as a veteran door knocker myself and having run my own direct sales company, I can tell you that no genuine charity will send people to your door without an ID that can be verified with a phone number or telling the police that they are working in the area. Genuine charity collectors will also have no issue with handing over their ID badge for you to check while you keep the door on the chain or close the door while you make the call. The ID badge should always have the charity number on it, so you can also check that online, but beware, that is not a guarantee of authenticity. They should also be aware of how much the collector appears to know about the charity. They may be extremely vague about what the charity does. They might even be aggressive or try to make you feel guilty about not helping. So if you have any doubts, check them out first, but keep your door closed while you do so. If you're still not happy with a person at your door, call the police. But most importantly, do not give them or agree to give them anything. Now, some of that information is going to make it very difficult for new collectors, as they will often be vague and some companies train their collectors to pressure you. But as I don't work in that industry anymore, I really don't care. But I do care about you or your loved ones being mugged off. Now, on the 26th of June, we spoke about 26-year-old Nicole Smallman and half-sister 47-year-old Bieber Henry, whose bodies were discovered in Friant Country Park in Wembley, northwest London, after they were murdered, and that 2 wonderful, respectful and compassionate Metropolitan Police constables who attended the scene decided, in their infinite wisdom, to take selfies with the bodies of the 2 women and share them in a WhatsApp group chat. Bieber and Nicole were murdered in the early hours of June the 6th after celebrating Bieber's 46th birthday with a group of friends. The women's bodies were found after 1 p.m. on June the 7th next to each other in a tree line, with a post-mortem examination later revealing they had both died from multiple stab wounds. Allegations emerged that non-official and inappropriate photographs had been taken at the murder scene, and the constables, who have not been named but who are based with the Met's North East Command, had been suspended from duty while the Independent Office for Police Conduct continued to investigate. Well, during that investigation, it seems that there was not just a couple of horrible cretins who thought it was a good idea, as now 6 more police constables have been identified, all from the same North East Command, and are now also under investigation for alleged misconduct over the incident, while there are also other allegations of wrongdoing outside of the Wembley case. When the selfies first emerged, Commander Paul Brogden said, "I'm horrified and disgusted by the nature of these allegations, a sentiment which will be shared by colleagues throughout the organisation. If true, these actions are morally reprehensible and anyone involved will be robustly dealt with." Well, let's hope they are, Paul, because the IOPC has sent its investigation file to the Crown Prosecution Service for them to decide whether or not to prosecute the constables. In a statement by police issued yesterday afternoon, Metropolitan Police said on Wednesday the 17th of June the Metropolitan Police Service's Directorate of Professional Standards was informed of allegations that non-official and inappropriate photographs had been taken by police at the crime scene in Friant Country Park, Wembley, in relation to the murders of Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman. These images were shared on a closed WhatsApp group. The Metropolitan Police Service made a referral to the Independent Office of Police Conduct, which launched an independent investigation. 2 Metropolitan Police officers were arrested on Monday the 22nd of June by the IOPC on suspicion of misconduct in a public office. They have since been released under investigation. Both officers, who are based at the North East Command, have been suspended from duty. The IOPC has completed its investigation and has sent a report to the Metropolitan Police Service, which is currently being reviewed by the Directorate of Professional Standards. The report will also be sent to the Crown Prosecution Service. During the course of this investigation, further possible misconduct matters came to light, and the IOPC have advised 6 additional officers that they are under investigation for misconduct in relation to the inappropriate and non-official photographs. In addition, possible misconduct unrelated to the Wembley incident and involving a small number of officers has been identified by the IOPC. 18-year-old Daniel Hussain from Blackheath has been charged with the murders of both women and is due to appear in court next month to enter his pleas. Well, at least they managed to get that bit right. In yesterday's report, we mentioned Wiltshire Police Constable PC Andy Ross, who was facing a misconduct hearing over breaching professional standards. The standards he was accused of breaching were honesty and integrity, authority, respect and courtesy, orders and instructions, duties and responsibilities, and discreditable conduct. In yesterday's report, we had no information as to what the offences were. However, after I'd recorded last night's report, the details emerged. Ross is said to have offered to have sex with a woman he met on a dating app in his patrol car and sent him a picture of himself in full uniform. The inquiry heard that the Wiltshire Police Constable contacted the woman, known as Miss X, last year after noticing her dating profile online where she said she liked uniforms. He sent a picture of himself in uniform to prove he was a police constable before using his personal mobile to arrange to meet her. PC Ross and Miss X then met at around 10 p.m. on June 13th after he drove to her house in a patrol car at her request. He picked her up in the vehicle and parked in an isolated location where they spoke with each other and apparently just kissed and hugged. The couple also talked about what Ms. X would say if anyone spotted her with a police officer, and PC Ross suggested she could say she lost her dog and he was helping her look for it. 7 weeks later, while on duty, Constable swapped a series of sexual messages with the woman, including suggested that they could have sex in his police car. He then picked her up from her home at 10:54 on August the 6th whilst on duty in Chippenham, Wiltshire, and drove to an isolated location. They parked up for 10 minutes, engaged in a conversation, and apparently just kissed and hugged again, before dropping her off at home around 11:15 p.m. Barrister Alice Meredith for Wiltshire Police said the constable's actions had brought discredit on the police service and would have undermined people's confidence in the force. He was accused of neglecting his responsibilities as a police constable and breached a specific point in the force's code of conduct, stopping officers from engaging in sexual conduct or inappropriate behaviour whilst on duty. She went on to say that having expressed an interest in uniforms and prior to the second meeting, discussed engaging in sexual activity involving the use of a police car. Ms. X and the officer made arrangements to meet while the officer was on uniformed duty and using a marked police vehicle. The officer sent a photograph of a marked police vehicle he was driving, drove near her home in that vehicle, and then collected her and met with her in that vehicle whilst on uniformed duty. These actions compromised and abused that position. Now, you may well be wondering what's happened to Ross, but before I tell you, it's important to note that PC Ross had been in trouble with his superiors before. It was said that he was given a 12-month written warning for using his police car to take himself to a private hospital appointment without the permission of his bosses in 2013. And he was also given an 18-month written warning after a number of allegations were proven against him, including that he spent an excessive amount of time whilst on duty communicating with a woman. Alice Meredith added this officer was well aware this type of behaviour constituted misconduct. He was well aware he could and would be sanctioned for this. And he was sanctioned. PC Ross is now former PC Ross of Wiltshire Police, after he was handed his P45 and shown the door, after the panel ruled that his actions amounted to more than just misconduct. Of course, he blamed his actions on his mental health, as you would expect, and told the panel that he deeply regretted being caught. He deeply regretted his actions. Hampshire Police has seen an increase of complaints of racism of over 50% in just 1 year. Now, I always wondered where the plod who leave other forces before they were fired went. However, out of 61 complaints made about constables and staff last year, not a single one of them was upheld by the police force. Now, I have to be on level with you. I do not believe for a moment that there is no racism in the police. Obviously, there are people everywhere who have discriminatory views. I simply, personally, don't believe that there are as many as being made out in the mainstream media reports or by supposed victims. I also believe that out of 61 complaints, it's highly improbable that not a single one of them was in fact a real discrimination claim from a member of the public. So I do acknowledge that discrimination happens. I'm just very sceptical about the amount, especially in light of more recent events. A Freedom of Information request to Hampshire Constabulary was made by the Basingstoke Gazette asking how many racism complaints were made against officers and staff in the years 2018, 2019 and 2020 to date. In 2018, 42 complaints about racism were made by members of the public, rising to 61 in 2019. Up until June this year, there had been 35. None of these have been upheld, resulting in no further action being taken. A previous Freedom of Information request submitted to Hampshire Constabulary regarding complaints about racism shows that there were 23 in 2015, 16 in 2016 and 19 in 2017. In 2015, 3 of these resulted in a case to answer outcome, 2 in 2016 and 1 in 2017. Hampshire Police said there are a number of reasons why the numbers have increased. For example, we have more racist and discriminatory staff. No, that's not what they said. Hampshire Police said there are a number of reasons why the numbers have increased. For example, we have invested greatly in ensuring we record incidents and allegations more accurately in all areas of force and provided increased training in awareness for supervisors. Hampshire Constabulary is clear that discriminatory behaviour or language will not be tolerated within our force, and any complaint received by the public will be investigated fairly and effectively. I think that for not a single complaint out of 61 to be upheld or hold any further action is a clear sign that the good old Blue Line gang are covering up for each other. I can't imagine that 61 people would all complain and not a single one of their complaints be of a genuine incident of discrimination. 30-year-old father of 4, Andre Mora, was detained by police on Friday the 6th of July 2018 on 7th Avenue in Limeside, Oldham on suspicion of breaching the peace. Greater Manchester Police said they were called to reports of a domestic disturbance. Police used CS spray to restrain Mr Mora outside his house before he was taken to Ashton-under-Lyne Police Station. But that, on arrival, Mr Mora was found unresponsive in the back of the police van. He was then taken to Tameside Hospital, where he was declared dead at 1:30 a.m. Greater Manchester Police made a mandatory referral to the Independent Office for Police Conduct following the incident, and all 10 officers who attended were placed on restricted duties. A neighbour, Barry Lee Martin, witnessed much of the incident and captured it on video, saying that he had seen a police officer knee Mr Mora in the head several times as he was being restrained. Video was seized as part of the probe, and IOPC investigators also looked into the allegations that police waited around 15 or 20 minutes after Mr Mora was put in a van before taking him to Ashton Station rather than a hospital. In a video, which I've not been able to find, it's reported that Mr Mora can be heard screaming and telling police that they had hurt him. Mr Martin is heard asking police, "Is he all right?" "You just need him about several times." A constable replies, "Yeah, I know, pal." Mr Martin then said it was a little excessive, him kneeing him then. Constable replied, "Yeah, you stood here scrapping with him. No, go back in your house, pal." Earlier in the video, an officer is said to be heard shouting, "Put your hands behind your back, stop resisting, or you're going to get sprayed again." Yeah, the good old stop resisting line. Mr Mora is then heard shouting, "Help me, help." The investigation into Mr Mora's death took 12 months, after which the IOPC passed a file to the Crown Prosecution Service recommending criminal charges against 5 of the constables, 1 for assault occasioning actual bodily harm and misconduct in public office, and 4 for misconduct in public office. But 12 months later, the Crown Prosecution Service has now decided not to follow up on any charges against the police involved. Jenny Hopkins, head of Special Crime and Counter-Terrorism Jenny Hopkins, head of Special Crime and Counter-Terrorism in the CPS, said, "The CPS has carefully considered all of the available evidence in relation to the death of Mr. Andre Mora, and we have concluded that our legal test for prosecution is not met. In these circumstances, we cannot pursue any criminal charges against any of the 5 police officers involved. Given the seriousness of the criminal offences considered, the complexity of the evidence and the tragic circumstances around Mr. Mora's death, this process has taken some time, but it was vital that the evidence was reviewed with utmost care. We considered the actions of the 3 police officers involved in the arrest of Mr. Mora and also the actions or inactions of the same 3 officers and 2 others involved in the treatment of Mr. Mora after he had been arrested and put in a police van. This included footage from police body-worn video cameras, mobile phone footage from a witness, evidence from an independent expert in police restraint, and evidence from a consultant in accident and emergency medicine. We have concluded there is insufficient evidence for any manslaughter, assault or misconduct in public office, criminal charges against any of those officers." Currently, 10 Greater Manchester Police Constables are said to still be on restricted duties over the incident pending internal disciplinary proceedings. An IOPC spokesperson said, "We completed our investigation in August 2019 into the actions of Greater Manchester police officers prior to the death of Andre Mora. At the conclusion of our investigation, we referred 5 GMP officers to the Crown Prosecution Service, which has decided not to charge the officers with any offence. The threshold for an IOPC referral is lower than the threshold applied by the CPS when they consider whether to charge someone with a criminal offence." Now, how the hell does that make any sense? If the Crown Prosecution Service threshold is higher than the Independent Office of Police Conduct, then they should also work to the same threshold when looking into criminal actions. It seems to me like passing the blame. I mean, let's face it, the IOPC send a file to the CPS, knowing it won't pass their threshold test. The public don't know this and so think, yeah, IOPC are doing something good about this. What a wonderful, transparent and independent organisation they are. Only for the CPS to refuse charges. Now, everyone thinks the CPS are the bad guys and the IOPC did everything they could, when the IOPC have stated that they know the CPS threshold is higher and so would have known there was a chance it wouldn't get pursued. And this is why people really need to start thinking for themselves, researching for themselves, and literally stop believing, everything these supposed independent bodies tell you, because there is always an agenda and they are never transparent unless it suits them. On the 24th of August, we heard about West Mercia Police who, instead of dispersing an Asian wedding party of around 200 people in Birmingham for breaking COVID regulations, they took a ceremonial knee and posed for pictures in poses reminiscent of a 70s adult film while they wait for their partner to finish on their faces. At the time, Chief Superintendent Sue Thomas of West Mercia Police said, as part of their engagement with the wedding party, our officers agreed to pose for a photo. However, in the usual police-style U-turn, Chief Superintendent Sue Thomas, who initially voiced her disappointment as she vowed to speak to the officers over their conduct in the pandemic, has now said that the officers should have taken a more proactive approach to social distancing and added that their actions do not reflect our expectations. In the full statement, Chief Superintendent Thomas said, "We were called to an event in Telford and a number of wedding guests were spoken to after concerns were raised about inappropriate driving. Inquiries are still ongoing in regards to potential offences. With regards to the officers' engagement with the wedding party, we acknowledge that the officers should have taken a more proactive approach regarding social distancing, both to the wedding guests and themselves, and they have been spoken to in relation to this, as their actions do not reflect our expectations. As part of their engagement with the wedding party, the officers agreed to pose for a photo, but were not making any kind of statement. The wedding reception was not held within the West Mercia police area, and as such, we're unable to comment on the response to the actual gathering. However, we do take the concerns of the public very seriously, and we're committed to engaging with and educating residents, but where necessary, we will use enforcement powers to ensure the safety of the public. We do take concerns of the public very seriously. Unless, of course, your concerns are over your staff, it would seem. When will the police simply start admitting when they're wrong, instead of blatantly trying to cover up their mistakes? We all make them, but the mark of integrity is admitting your mistake and changing rather than trying to pretend that they never happened or make excuses for them. Land of Hope and Glory. We mentioned how it was being axed from last night of the Proms along with Royal Britannia over concerns for hurty feelings. Well, now there is even more concern for hurty feelings as Dame Vera Lynn's rendition of Land of Hope and Glory has topped the iTunes chart. However, the BBC have since agreed to include the song but without lyrics and have said that the song will be included in next year's Last Night of the Proms. Business Secretary Alok Sharma has spoken out and said that he would like to have the lyrics included. Piers Morgan also hit out at the BBC and branded the network pathetic for backtracking on its decision to drop the songs entirely. This is absolutely pathetic, he tweeted in response to a tweet confirming the BBC's decision. The BBC needs to grow a pair and stop grovelling to such insane, woke, cancel culture nonsense that most Britons find utterly absurd. Yesterday, Boris Johnson said,
I'm going to say one more thing, because I was going to tweet about this, but I just want to say that, and they're trying to restrain me from saying this, but if it is correct, which I cannot believe that it really is, but if it is correct that the BBC is saying that they will not sing the words of Land of Hope and Glory of Rule Britannia, as they traditionally do at the end of last night of the Proms, I think it's time we stopped our cringing embarrassment about our history, about our traditions, and about our culture, and we stop this general bout of self-recrimination and wetness.
And I have to agree. Of course, there are things in this world that we will never fully agree with, but when it comes to people's history, their national pride, there has to be a line that isn't crossed. I said it yesterday, I can't think of any other country that would agree to do this kind of thing in order to pander to a minority of people. But of course, I understand why some people might be offended by it, but get over it. Turn over before the end of the programme. You could still watch it all and just skip those songs. It's not really difficult, is it? Big thank you to the channel supporters, one and all, especially the channel Patreon supporters. Your support is truly appreciated and really does help. And that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police, and of course, other officials.
Good night, all.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video, there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.